Good morning, Mets fans, and welcome to a Friday edition of Driving with Mr. Met. I am Mr. Met, and last night the Mets somewhat expectedly lost to the Dodgers in Game 4 of their 4-game series. But the unexpected part was how they lost and how well Jason Vargas pitched last night. I want to talk about the game. I want to talk about the lack of offense from the Mets last night. And I want to talk about Mets Twitter and its over-the-top, outrageous overreactions to every little thing that's happening with this team. If you had told me 4 days ago that of the 4 starts that were going to be made by the starting rotation, that Jason Vargas's would be the most effective, I would have laughed. But that was the case. That was the case last night. Jason Vargas threw 7 innings of one-run ball against the best offense in the National League. You take away his clunker relief appearance against the Twins 2 months or a month and a half or so ago, and his ERA isn't even that bad. In fact, right now, his ERA is better than both Syndergaard's and Wheeler's ERAs. So that's crazy that we still talk so much shit about Vargas, and yet here he is being effective, being the guy that Sandy Alderson brought in to be the 5th man in this rotation. And he, like I said, he's done a pretty admirable job, sitting between 85 miles an hour with that fastball, 87 miles an hour, mixing in the off-speed stuff. He was good last night. I mean, look, bottom line is he was really good last night. Unfortunately, the Mets ran into the hottest pitcher in the National League, guy who leads the NL in ERA, and Hyun-Jin Ryu. And again, I think this was expected. It was expected that the Mets were not going to be able to put up the same offensive numbers that they did in the previous 3 games, just because of how well Ryu's been pitching. That said, there was some hope that maybe the Mets could have gotten into the Dodgers bullpen, but just like Vargas, Ryu pitched deep into the game as well, handed the ball right to Kenley Jansen, and the Mets only had a couple of limited scoring opportunities. And look, they're not going to score 7 runs every day, right? And we've talked about this ad nauseum in the past, that the offense and the pitching never seemed to sync up. And, if only the Mets had been able to put up the offense they did the night before or the night before that, they would have won last night's game. And look, the bottom line with all of this, last night's game, the night before the debacle loss, this was a 4-game series, and Mickey Callaway said it in his press conference after the game. We feel like we could have won any one of these games, every one of these games. We were in every one of these games. He sort of said, we showed the Dodgers that we can hang with them. And while he's not wrong, I don't know that I completely agree with the sentiment. I mean, it's not wrong, but I don't know. There's just something a little bit off about saying that after losing 3 of 4. Yes, it's the best team in the National League that you've lost 3 out of 4 to. Yes, you did put together several good performances offensively, a couple of good pitching performances, sprinkled in there with some really just awful pitching performances, as we know. But the bottom line is the Mets lost 3 games out of the 4. And they now find themselves 2 games beneath 500. They are 6 games out of first place in the National League East. But there's lots of season left. And look, Mets Twitter is going crazy and reacting at the most micro level to every little thing that happens. I mean, Todd Frazier makes an error. Cut Todd Frazier. Todd Frazier strikes out. Cut Todd Frazier. Todd Frazier's been hitting the ball pretty well over the last 3 weeks. He's also played a very good third base defensively. You're not going to cut Todd Frazier. Sorry, it's not going to happen. You owe him money, and they're not going to cut it. Sorry about that. That was my son's bus alarm that just went off and cut me off mid-sentence. But I was saying, Todd Frazier is not going to get cut. The Mets owe him too much money, And that's just the way it is. I mean, period. There's no getting around it. And frankly, look, guys don't perform perfectly every day. It does not happen. I don't know what game you're watching, people, but you've got to stop reacting to every little thing that happens and thinking that it needs to have an instant reaction by the front office and by management to say, well, this guy struck out in a tight spot, let's cut him. You know, the Mets did that with Keon Broxton. Let's not forget, right? The Mets cut Keon Broxton after he struck out in the 9th inning with the winning runs on base, and then after the game he made some questionable comments to the media. And he was cut. He was released. And within a couple of days, the Mets needed an outfielder. And in their rage cutting, to quote my friends at for all you kids out there, in their rage cutting of Keon Broxton, they left themselves wide open to have to go out and scramble to call up Rajai Davis and sign Aaron Altair and call up Carlos Gomez and take a flyer on Matt Kemp. These are things that had to happen because the Mets reacted quickly and cut Keon Broxton. I'm not saying that's bad, right? But you can't do that every time some little thing happens. You can't. And it doesn't work that way. Right? This is a long season. Nobody bats 1,000. Nobody has an ERA of 0. Nobody gets through a season without losing a game or two. It just doesn't happen. So, does it suck when it happens? Yes. Can we be upset that it happens? Absolutely. But should our reaction be, let's cut that bum, he's terrible? Should we go outside in our backyard and burn a Matt Harvey jersey like that doofus did on Twitter yesterday? Absolutely not. I mean, or do it, whatever, I don't care. But, stop overreacting. That's the point that I'm trying to make. Right? Understand this is a long season. Understand that 2015, up until basically the last third of the season, was not a great year by any means. And the Mets went to the World Series. So for all of the overreacting on Mets Twitter, for all of the overreacting that the beat writers are going through right now, talking about the Mets being sellers, just shut up. I mean, first of all, it's too early to decide that. It's too early to decide whether they're going to be sellers. You saw just after last weekend in Miami when the Mets got swept, and then they turned around and won 4 straight from the Nationals. You see how quickly that seesaw can teeter in either direction. So it's too early to decide that this team is garbage, because they've shown signs several times this year that they are not garbage. And these 4 games with the Dodgers, for instance, are an example of how this team is really close to having things go their way and be in a position where they will compete for a playoff spot this year. I strongly believe that. And let's not forget, they're doing this without Jeff McNeil. They're doing it without Robbie Cano, who admittedly hasn't done much this season, nor has Brandon Nimmo, who's also absent from the lineup. But these are regulars. I mean, at one point last week, the Mets were missing 50% of the position players that were on the starting opening day roster, and they still won some games. So let's not overreact to every little thing. That's my point. Let's kind of take a step back and be upset about it, certainly, but don't freak out. Don't call for someone's head because they made a bonehead play. It's unbecoming. Okay. Sorry, that's my little Twitter rant. Mets Twitter rant of the day. Speaking of the day, the Mets today will be in Arizona to kick off a weekend set with the Diamondbacks at Chase Field. Tonight, 9:40 start time. And we will see Zachariah Wheeler on the mound for the Mets. So we'll see how Zach does. Hopefully he can be good Zach and not bad Zach. And we get DeGrom on Saturday, and which means we get Nito on Saturday. So we'll see what happens tonight when the Mets open up this 3-game set with the Diamondbacks and Wilmer Flores. So it'd be nice to see Wilmer. I'm sure that they'll do something cool for Wilmer on SNY, and I'm looking forward to when he returns to Citi Field, because I'm sure they'll put together a nice video package for Wilmer when that time comes as well. So until Monday, when I return after the weekend set, which hopefully is a successful one, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. You can follow me on Twitter at Mr_Met. And as always, let's go Mets.